I missed 4 achievements.
Why did that make me laugh?
I have not seen 8 of the, characters or character interactions.
Narrator Cole.
Narrator Cole. Bigby Wolf, Fabletown Sheriff. The renowned Big Bad Wolf. He's known for tormenting pigs and girls in red hoods, but is trying to put those dark days behind him. Bigby now acts as Fabletown's sheriff and remains in the human form mostly. However, due to his past, the citizens of Fabletown are slow to trust him. Bigby is determined to show that he's truly changed, but some instincts are just too hard to control. Snow White, assistant to the deputy mayor. Not anymore. Snow White may seem cold, but this stems from her life of mistreatment and abuse back in the homelands. After escaping assault and imprisonment, not to mention an attempt on her life, she married Prince Charming. It wasn't long before Snow discovered that Charming cheated on her with her estranged sister, Rose Red, and she divorced him. After the executus, Snow focused her attention on setting up a safe haven for Fables in the New World. She now serves as assistant to the deputy mayor of Fabletown. Well, I was not expecting that. That was, well, okay. The Woodsman, fallen hero. The Woodsman is one of the few men who went toe-to-toe with Bigby in his Black Forest days and lived to tell the tale. In an attempt to save Little Red Riding Hood, he split the Great Wolf's belly open with his axe, filled him full of rocks, and threw the beast into a river. To his dismay, his popularity has faded. Even his name is forgotten, and he is only known as the Woodsman. Faith, Donkey Skin Girl. Faith, otherwise known as the Donkey Skin Girl, made it through the executus from the magical homelands with the clothes on her back, her husband and nothing else. She was once a beautiful princess, happily married to Prince Lawrence of a neighboring kingdom. Her life should have had a happy ending, but the mundane city of New York wasn't kind to her. Or her marriage. With no money, Faith found herself turning tricks to make the rent for a cheap apartment on the outskirts of Fabletown. She had a difficult life, but she did what she could to survive in an unfamiliar world. Beauty. Caring wife. Beauty and her husband Beast once lived in an enchanted castle, but they were forced to flee the homelands in the executus, leaving all of their wealth behind. Now they live in a modest studio in Fabletown, New York. Though times are hard, with Beast working multiple jobs to pay the bills, the couple have the longest lasting relationship of all the Fables. Beast, concerned husband. Beast and his wife Beauty left everything behind when they escaped the homelands in the executus. Without his former wealth, Beast must pick up extra work to make ends meet. He is able to get around Fabletown without a glamour most of the time, but if Beauty gets too angry with him, he becomes more beastly by the minute, growing horns and large teeth. Despite the occasional bickering, the two are truly in love and have the longest lasting relationship of anyone in Fabletown. Mr. Toad, slumlord. He looks so mad with this image they gave him. Mr. Toad is the superintendent for a defunct tenement on the edge of Fabletown proper. Because he's a 3.5-foot talking amphibian, Toad is required by Fabletown law to keep his family and himself magically glamored to appear human. Problem is, Toad isn't too concerned with what the law is and has to be reminded often. Colin, couch surfer. Colin is better known as one of the 3 little pigs. Back in the homelands, they were harassed by the Big Bad Wolf, who blew down Colin's house of straw, so he was the straw pig. After the executus, Colin and the other Fables who couldn't pass for human were sent to live at the farm in upstate New York. Unable to stand such a boring life, Colin constantly makes trips down to Fabletown to bother Bigby. He is always caught and sent back to the farm, but he doesn't let that stop him. Ichabod Crane. Hailing from the haunted town of Sleeping Hollow, Ichabod Crane has been deputy mayor of Fabletown for nearly 115 years. Crane is a bundle of nerves and takes his job very seriously, though that doesn't mean he always does it well. As one of the Fabletown's elite, Crane is often blind to the troubles of the less well-off citizens. Overall, Crane is cowardly and always hiding something. Buffkin, Beast Boy. Fabletown librarian. Buffkin is the talking winged monkey from the land of Oz. Now as Fabletown's librarian, he spends his time reading and stealing the deputy mayor's booze. He prones to mischief, so when something goes wrong, he assumes he'll receive the lion's share of the blame. He's helpful when he wants to be, but most of the time he'd rather be drinking. Someone would have fired him a long time ago, but he's the only one who can make sense of the filing system. Fabletown. Fabletown is a community located on Bullfinch Street in Manhattan's Upper West Side. To regulate people, or Mondays, it appears to be an ordinary New York neighborhood, but it is really the home of fables from many worlds, and within the business office at the Woodlands lies a massive cavern, a vast library, and hundreds of magical items of immense power. All non-human fables Fables live upstate on the farm, an extension of Fabletown. The farm. The farm is home to Fables who cannot pass as human. Giants, goblins, humans, well, animals, etc. It is located in upstate New York, far enough away from the Mundys to avoid detection. Some of its residents resent their confinement to the farm despite its size and comforts. To them, the farm is a prison. They would be allowed to leave the farm if they could purchase a glamour, but many don't have the money for something so expensive. Though some, like Colin, sneak out into the city anyway. Mundies, short for mundane. Mundy is a catch-all term Fables used refer to the non-magical inhabitants of their adopted home. Warding spells placed around the blocks of Fabletown and the farm keep their minds distracted and dull within certain boundaries. However, if anything should pick curiosity of scrutiny or a large group of Mundies, these magical protection charms would overload and fail. As Sheriff of Fabletown, one of Bigby's primary functions is ensuring the Fabletown community maintains a low profile. So glamours are spells that allow the user to change their appearance. They are expensive, but can be purchased by non-human Fables in order to pass for human among the Mundies. Cheap glamours can be found in the seedier parts of Fabletown, but they are often unreliable and prone to sudden failure. Prince Lawrence. Episode 1. I didn't go to his place first, so he just fucking keeled over and got stabbed and shot and murdered and murdered. After escaping the homelands, Prince Lawrence and his wife, Faith, immediately fell victim to the harsh realities of the mundane world. They moved to New York, hoping to find aid in a community of fellow Fables. But without enough money to live in Fabletown, they had to settle to an apartment on the outskirts of the neighborhood. Unfortunately, that meant they were out of sight and out of mind when it came to government assistance. Her prospects dwindling, Faith left Lawrence to try to make it on her own, and now, without his wife for support, Lawrence struggles to motivate himself, quickly sinks into depression. Tweedle brothers, Dumb and Dee, are thugs for hire. Hired goons. They appear human, allowing them to carry out their contracts in the Mundy world without drawing suspicion. They're as inseparable as they are ruthless. Holly, Trip Trap owner. Holly is a no-sense kind of troll and the owner of the Trip Trap bar. She's glamored to appear human, but her patrons know her. Holly takes good care of her regulars, often the downtrodden Fables with little to spare. But she has no patience for the Fabletown government that has done nothing to locate her missing sister. Grendel, Drifter. This is the guy who I could have broken his arm. Grendel just wants to be left alone. In the old days, he terrorized Norse mead halls, but lately he has been found occupying a stool in various quiet, dumpy bars around New York. He hates the noise of the city, but must work there to afford his glamour. Despite his rough bearing, he's fiercely loyal to those who've learned to offer him the space and silence he desires. Talking to him is like watching a time bomb tick down. It's only a matter of time. Bluebeard, also known as Lee. It's the actor of Lee in the Walking Dead game. Bluebeard managed to escape the homelands with his riches intact, continues to be one of the wealthiest Fables in New York. Fabletown government depends on his generous contributions, and he often uses this influence for his own benefit. As a former serial killer, he claims his days of decapitating his brides are over, but even if he was able to leave his violent ways in the homelands, this hasn't stopped him from making his occasional trip down Crooked Lane. I didn't know he was a fucking murderer. Well, that changes shit. Okay, Bigby's Mercy. In the days leading up to the Executus, the Big Bad Wolf hunted armies of men and goblins in the Black Forest. These invading forces have driven off the great beast's preferred quarry, and their own flesh was rotten with corruption. Hardly a suitable replacement. He made it his game to destroy their camps, devour the night watchmen, and disrupt their supply trains while sparing their prisoners. One day he broke their ranks and discovered a particular woman they held captive. Her skin was white as snow, but her hair was as dark as the night sky. He approached her, and she, knowing no sword could match the giant wolf's power, bravely placed her shackles in the beast's mouth. He freed her, but years would pass before the two met again in the Mundy world. Bluebeard's Mercy, Bluebeard's last wife. After a long line of marriages resulting in mysterious disappearances, Bluebeard's last wife in the homelands was naturally suspicious of him. One day, he departed on business, leaving her alone in his estate. He gave her free reign of all the rooms, but made her promise not to open the closet on the ground floor. She defied him, of course, discovered the location of his missing wives. When Bluebeard returned, he knew he must kill her before she revealed his murderous secret. She persuaded him to allow her a moment to pray, which he reluctantly granted. This small mercy gave her brothers time to arrive and rescue her, and Bluebeard's crimes were exposed. 13th floor, the Witches and Wizards of Fabletown. The 13th floor of the Woodland building is home to a group of witches and wizards tasked with the protection of Fabletown. They use their powers to keep the community hidden from prying Mundy eyes, but all magic has its limits, and every spell has its cost. The Witching Well. The Witching Well is located in a chamber inside the Woodland building, where it is used to dispose of things never meant to be seen again. Dead fables are committed to its depths, as are the most undeemable criminals. No one is entirely sure what lies at the bottom of the well, nor indeed if it has a bottom at all, but it is widely assumed to be the passageway to the final resting place.
If someone went down the witching well, they could not even be dead. We don't even know where it goes.
Jack Horner, harmless trickster. Jack is always up to something, but he's not nearly as smart as he thinks he is. His plans to get rich quick often backfire, but his confidence never wavers. He thinks he's the most important person in Fabletown, but everyone knows him as a mostly harmless smartass. Lily, estranged sister. Lily and her sister Holly grew up in the homelands together, but had a falling out shortly after moving to the mundane world. Aimless and increasingly astute, Lily turned to prostitution, and now she's the second victim in an ongoing murder investigation. Troll Cross, Lily's brooch. The Troll Cross is an amulet made of iron that was foolishly thought to protect the wearer from trolls. Lily acquired hers while wandering through the wilderness searching for something to eat. She came across a human, but before she could devour him, he held the troll cross out and shouted, "Back, back, you troll." After enjoying her tasty snack, Lily plucked the cross from the dead man's hands. After the execution, she wore the troll cross constantly as a reminder of better days. Georgie Porgy, the pimp. Georgie runs the Pudding and Pie, a strip club that also caters to the unmentionable desires of the Fabletown citizens. He's tried just about everything there is to try in pursuit of worldly pleasures, but none of it satisfies him for long. He does seem to enjoy pushing people's buttons. He takes pride in his nightclub and doesn't react well to anyone meddling in his affairs. Clever Hans. This was the guy who he was being a dick to. Bouncer, janitor, handyman. Clever Hans always does exactly as he's told. However, he often misunderstands his instructions and ends up hurting himself or behaving oddly. As in the case of his noted fable where he threw sheep's eyes at his wife. Unsurprisingly, she left him. Now Hans works as a bouncer at Georgie's club. He hopes to dance on stage one day, but for now, he's content sweeping up and making sure the crowd doesn't get out of hand. Nerissa, the Little Mermaid. Nerissa's story never had a happy ending. She's known as the Little Mermaid, the young girl who gave up her tail for a pair of legs in the hope of winning the heart of a handsome prince. When he married a princess instead, Nerissa was left heartbroken. She made the journey to the mundane world, hoping for a better life. Now she dances at the Pudding and Pie, but each step she takes feels like she's walking on shards of glass. She has very little left, but finds some comfort in the company of her fellow dancers. She doesn't have a ribbon around her neck in this photo. Troll funeral rites, the long absence. The gaze of Great Mother Death is always upon us. Beneath her affectionate eye, we fight our battles. We nurse our wounds, we shout our victories, we endure our sorrows, and when we fall, she is there. Her embrace is the silence of the mountain, the heavy peace of the stone, approximately translated. Troll funeral is a sacred ritual passed down by oral traditions from troll mother to son. It begins at sunset with the creation of the cairn. A small pile of stones represent the many generations of trolls that have traveled and died before them, foundation upon which the living stand. Weapons are divided amongst the trolls' closest comrades. The body and the rest of the possessions are buried, and though each viewer must speak to the life of the lost, the eulogy's candor would make a Mundy blush. Vivian, Georgie's girl. Well, not anymore, they're both dead. Much of Vivian's past is unknown since she prefers not to talk about her life back in the homelands. She wanted to start fresh in Fabletown, but she finds herself working for Georgie at the Pudding and Pie. It's not a terrible life. Georgie took a liking to Vivian, so he doesn't make her take jobs at the open arms. Instead, she plays hostess and helps Georgie ensure complete customer satisfaction. Dr. Swinehart, the guy who kept healing me. Thank you, man. The army surgeon. Dr. Swinehart is the resident Fabletown physician, so skilled in the art of instrument surgery that he can safely operate on himself. He served as an army medic for many years, sometimes using his talents to impress the locals. Currently runs the special research section of the Knights of Malta Hospital. So named to discourage people for investigating what is actually a reserved Fables-focused health facility. Trip Trap Bar, the watering hole. The oldest bar in New York City, Trip Trap was established in 1725 in secret by Starcad, the legendary Viking and reprobate, as a place for Fables to meet and drink and commiserate. Known then as the Grammarian's Tavern, he eventually lost it in a bet to a tribe of mountain trolls, who quickly renamed it and made it their own. Holly's the current perpetrator, having inherited it from her mother when she died in a boating accident in the early 20th century. Auntie Greenleaf, the White Deer. Horticulturist, alchemist, and lover of animals. Auntie Greenleaf is one of the few rogue witches still living outside of the 13th floor, unsupervised and unrestricted, rumored to have lost a daughter in the homeland. She suffers paranoia and desperate mood swings, and will only venture outside at irregular hours under the guise of an ethereal white deer, an oft-whispered specter of Brookhaven natives. Glamour Tube, the handy disguise. Glamours can be produced in a variety of ways, but one of the most common due to its ease of use is to take a small hollowed out tube or container and place within it several items unique to whomever the caster wants to copy, which is required for the reactionary charm. Two downsides of this type of glamour is that totally unique appearances are completely impossible, and the nature of the vessel makes it quite unstable. Ring and a Spell, reputed to be fashioned by a Byzantine clan in an attempt to ward off a coven of witches. The Ring of Dispel, or Dispelling Ring, or Magic Cancelling Ring, eventually was given to Lancelot by the Lady in the Lake. Recovered by the business office after the emigration to New Amsterdam, it was assigned to Greenleaf for caretaking. Bloody Mary, the urban legend. The true history of the person known as Bloody Mary is almost completely unknown, even to Fables most acquainted with its members, her name Mary at least. It's not up for contention, nor is her penchant for shocking violence, an inlaid resistance to magic and spells, and a strange ability to use any reflective surface as a portal, effectively shortcutting space and time. Thought by Mundies to be the wailing apparition of a childless ghost, though any evidence of that is as yet unseen. Silver bullets.
Some of them aren't even characters.
Wolf's weakness. The legends of great and magical wolves often...
I mean, yeah, but it's like stuff that's really important that we need to know about.
The legends of great and magical wolves often make mention of their weakness against weapons made out of silver, and those tales bear out to be true. The silver bullet Mary shot Bigby with was not the first, but any of them could be his last. Any silver left in Bigby's body weakens his system, slows his healing, and can cause long-term damage. Acting Deputy Snow White. With Ichabod Crane firmly out of the picture and King Cole still absent, the task of leading Fabletown falls squarely on Snow's shoulders. She's performed many of the job's duties for a long time, picking up the slack for Crane, but now that she's fully in charge of the business office, she has to deal with a new level of politicking she had not previously been exposed to. The Jersey Devil, Garden State Goon. Not all of the Fables who came to this world landed in Fabletown. There are those who scattered across the farthest corners of the earth, and there are those who simply prefer the Garden State to the Empire State, such as the Jersey Devil. Reports of its appearance have varied, although most accounts make mention of leathery wings, but an encounter with a certain axe of legend some years ago has temporarily rendered that feature absent. Woodsman's Axe. Ensorcelled by druids, once just a simple tool for felling trees, the axe became much more when it was ensorcelled by druids and marked with their runes. But it truly became an object of legend when the woodsman used it to slice the big bad wolf from nave to neck. Protection of Little Red Riding Hood. It may carry old world charm, but its simplicity of design and quality workmanship make it an effective tool or weapon even today. Johann, or Joan, whatever you want to say. His name is often said in the same breath as that of the baker and candlestick maker of Fabletown. And like those other tradesmen, Joanne the butcher's storefront has served Fabletown for ages. Fresh cuts, exotic meats, and even full sides of beef for the vigorous appetites of ogres and trolls. But Joanne's business has fallen on hard times, fallen in with the wrong crowd. As the quality of his products declined and his business turned into a front operation for the crooked man, some have started to wonder if they ever really knew Joanne. Bluebeard's money. One might think the Bluebeard donates funds to the Fabletown government for various purposes, seeking special favors or to have a louder voice in government proceedings, but what he really wants is stability and strength, because as far as Bluebeard is concerned, Fabletown exists to insulate him from the Mundy world. As much as his money can be a sword, it also serves as a shield. The Crooked Lair, headquarters. Occupying a sanctified church, this is just one of the many locations the Crooked Man's operation uses to run the Fabletown underworld. Lounge makes for a comfortable meeting place unless you are an unwelcome guest. It is completely boarded up on the outside world, and the only way in is through one of the many portals, marked by a door with the Crooked Man's Catherine Wheel icon, scattered throughout the city and elsewhere. The Crooked Man, crime lord. The Crooked Man has slowly built himself into one of the most powerful figures in Fabletown. His operation started with a crooked sixpence and a crooked house. Two things he cared about more than his wife or children, whom he killed rather than let them stand in his way. In his rise, the Crooked Man has ensnared many fables in his criminal web, providing them with what they need, but always at a cost. He is cunning, persuasive, and ruthless. Tiny Tim, Sentry. While most fables theorize that their longevity and overall well-being is improved by the Mundi world's knowledge of them, for a select few that does not seem to apply. When a malady or injury is an integral part of a fable story, that notoriety can make recovery nearly impossible. That's what Tiny Tim thinks, at least. And no medical care or magic, rather none that he can afford, can heal his leg. Life on the farm. With its idyllic location and managed community, the farm would seem to be a welcome alternative to eking out an existence in Fabletown. But those who have lived there see it very differently. They see it for what it is, a prison, a place where you are free to be who you are and do whatever you please, except leave. It doesn't help that while fables who appear human do not have to worry about being sent to the farm, they always seem to fill the leadership roles there. Vivian's story, the girl with the ribbon. Vivian was the very first to bear the curse of the purple ribbon. Removing the ribbon would result in death, and any attempt to talk about it was thwarted by the spell upon it. Time went on, she tried to live a normal life. Eventually she married a nice man, but he was constantly wondering about the ribbon around her neck. Despite her pleas for him to leave it alone, one night while she was sleeping he attempted to remove it. He pulled on the edge of the string. Vivian woke and saw what her husband was doing. In a panic she pulled away, preventing the ribbon's knot from being undone. Furious, she tried to express the severity of his actions, but her husband was unable to understand. She realized that she couldn't trust him and decided to leave. She lived alone for the rest of her days in the homelands, preferring the safety of isolation to the risk of another betrayal. Puddin' and Pie. Vivian and Georgie's place. Vivian and Georgie met during the exodus from the homelands, and they helped each other survive the long journey to the mundane world. Upon their arrival, however, they found it hard to make decent living. With what little money they had, they opened the Pudding and Pie. Operating a strip club may not have been the most desirable occupation, but they figured it was better to be in charge of a place like this than to be forced through desperation to work at one. Winter Wolf, Bigby's mother. We never even heard about this. Bigby's mother, Winter, fell in love with the North Wind and bore him 7 wolf cubs, but he quickly grew tired of her and left Winter. Heartbroken and alone, she tried to care for her cubs despite her grief. She was especially fond of Bigby, but as the runt of the litter, he was often teased by his older brothers. After Winter's death, Bigby's siblings went in search of their father, but Bigby stayed behind to protect his mother's corpse from scavengers. Fortunately, he was too small to defend her. From then on, he vowed to eat something bigger each day until he was large enough to confront his father, finally make him pay for the pain he caused his family. That's sad. I feel like he got big enough, let's be honest. The Big Bad Wolf.
Yeah,
Bigby's true form. Bigby's true form is that of a giant. 8-foot tall wolf. That's not 8 foot tall. That was a lot larger than 8 foot tall. No way, that's just 8 foot tall.
8 feet is.
Yeah, but like he was almost reaching like the roof of like a 20-foot
building, it looked like. In addition to his iconic huff and puff power, he has also inherited other abilities from his father, the North Wind. For example, Bigby is able to hold his breath for an abnormally long amount of time, making it impossible for him to drown. Mary's loyalty. Part of the job.
Drown.
Bloody Mary began working for the Crooked Man many centuries ago. He promised her freedom to do as she pleased, as long as she agreed to act as his personal bodyguard and hitman. Because of the Crooked Man's power and influence, Mary never had to worry about getting caught by the authorities. She enjoys her job immensely and would defend the Crooked Man to the death, mostly because she finds it fun. Fabletown Justice. When a criminal is captured in Fabletown, the traditional procedure is to hold a formal hearing in front of the community of concerned parties. However, exceptions are often made to expedite the process. In reality, there aren't any hard and fast rules for these types of situations. The extent to which policies are upheld can depend on who is being charged. A new order. Snow White in charge. With Crane out of the picture, Mayor Cole has officially appointed Snow White as the director of operations and deputy mayor in his absence. Many would say this promotion is a long time coming, since she was instrumental in the establishment of Fabletown and personally ensured that many fables made it to the New World safety. She's also been doing the work of deputy mayor unofficially for years. Sheriff Bigby. This is the final thing. After fleeing the homelands, Bigby Wolf spent many years wandering through Europe. With a fable colony quickly developing in the New World, Snow White and Feathertop tracked down the wolf and offered him passage to Fabletown. He agreed, and Snow cut him with a lycanthropy-stained knife to give him the power to change into human form at will. Bibby became sheriff of Fabletown under King Cole's administration. Because of his violent past, many fables didn't trust him. He was banned from ever setting foot on the farm. To this day, he struggles to redeem himself in the eyes of the community. And that's everything. It is located... Humans.